My name is Elara Voss. I was 32 the day my family uninvited me from my own sister's wedding and kept the $50,000 deposit I paid for it. But that wasn't the part that broke me. It was the silence, my father's silence when he found out. He didn't argue, didn't ask why. He just let it happen. What they didn't know was that I didn't make that payment out of love. I made it out of strategy, and they had just handed me the perfect reason to use it. Do you ever wonder how a person goes from being the one no one counts on to being the one holding all the strings? It started that morning, quiet, unassuming, like the calm seconds before an earthquake. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse at Voss Towers, the sky over downtown LA looked bruised, thick with smog and streaks of dawn light breaking through the haze. The hum of the city buzzed faintly beneath the soundproof glass. I held my coffee in one hand, the other scrolling through the week's event bookings on my tablet. Monday, gala dinner at the Garden Pavilion. Tuesday, charity auction at the rooftop. Thursday, closed venue for a private wedding, a wedding I wasn't supposed to attend. I'd paid the deposits, coordinated the vendors, pushed deadlines to get them the date they wanted, and yet, nothing. No invitation. Not even a phone call. The espresso was cold by the time my screen lit up. Talia Marwood wedding planner, Callista's pick. I hesitated. We hadn't spoken directly since the planning began. Everything had gone through Callista. I shouldn't have picked up. But something in my gut turned. I answered, "Talia?" There was a pause, a nervous exhale. "Elara, I wanted to give you a heads up before it gets out. I just got off the phone with your sister." Her voice wavered. She knew. She said, "You're no longer attending the wedding." I closed my eyes, let the weight settle behind them. "And the venue? Catering?" Talia fumbled, then cleared her throat. "They're keeping everything as is. The deposit you paid is being used." My fingers curled tighter around the mug. Ceramic pressed into my palm. Still, I said nothing. "Elara, I just assumed you knew. I wouldn't have—" "It's fine," I said flatly. But it wasn't. It wasn't even close to fine. I turned to the window. Down below, the city stretched out in slow motion, cars snaking through intersections, lives moving forward. I stood there, 32 floors above it all, invisible even to the people who shared my blood. The silence on the phone grew too thick to ignore. Talia whispered, "I'm sorry." I hung up, set the phone down gently, and let the silence flood in. For a moment, I just stood there, listening to nothing, watching everything. My reflection in the glass stared back, eyes steady, shoulders squared, but my knuckles were white. This wasn't new. Callista had always found ways to dim my light, to shrink my wins. "Small event gigs," she once sneered at a family dinner, swirling wine like she was born with it in hand. And now, she'd taken my money, my gesture of peace, and turned it into a silent exile. And Damien, our father, let her. Of course he did. He always did. A voice, quiet but firm, rose in me. "They'll regret this." I didn't shout it, just said it. To the empty air, to myself. Because something shifted in me then, something cold and precise. The same thing that built everything they thought I didn't have. They thought they'd humiliated me. They had no idea I still held the knife. The steam from my second coffee curled like smoke from a battlefield. Silent, rising, bitter. I hadn't slept. The city had shifted from silver dawn to white-hot morning, but I barely noticed. The Voss Towers penthouse still held its chill, though the sun pressed against the windows like it wanted in. I let it. I wanted to feel something burn. I should have called Callista, but instead I called him. "Dad?" There was a pause, then the click of his throat clearing, an old habit that used to mean he was about to say something thoughtful. "Elara," he said, like my name surprised him. "Hey, sweetheart, I was going to call you later." "About the wedding?" I said. My voice didn't even crack. That surprised me. More silence. "She told you then?" "She told the planner. The planner told me." I waited. He didn't fill the space. Instead, I heard the faint clink of glass. He was at the kitchen bar in the Hills house, pouring a second scotch at 10:40 a.m. Some things never changed. Callista thought it was best, he said carefully. with everything going on. You know." "I don't know," I said. "Enlighten me." He exhaled. I imagined him running his hand over his hair, the way he did whenever he knew he'd disappointed someone but didn't want to admit it. "She said you've been distant, that with your lifestyle it might cause tension, that you'd understand. My lifestyle. She didn't mean it harshly, honey, just unpredictable. She thought maybe the press might—" "Dad!" I didn't yell, didn't raise my voice, but everything inside me went still. "She took $50,000 from me, then told everyone I wasn't invited, and you said nothing?" "I didn't know she hadn't told you directly," he said. "She said it was all settled, that you were okay with it." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that didn't sound like me at all. "I paid for her wedding, Damien. You let her spend it like it came from you, and you didn't even check?" The use of his first name wasn't accidental. Neither was the way my voice broke at the edges. I wasn't trying to wound him. I was just tired of pretending he hadn't already done the damage himself. He didn't answer. I heard the quiet clink of ice melting in the glass. I leaned against the counter, letting the cold marble bite into my forearms. "You know she used it, right? The money. On her dress, the flowers, the horse-drawn whatever the hell she wanted. That wasn't her money." "I didn't realize." "Yes, you did," I said. "You always do. You just pretend not to." There it was. The twist I hadn't seen coming. Not just that Callista betrayed me. That Damien helped her do it and somehow managed to convince himself he hadn't. He sighed, softer this time. "She's been through a lot." "So have I." More silence, then quietly, "It wasn't personal, Elara." I let that hang. Not personal, not personal. It was always personal. Every sideways glance at dinner. Every maybe next time when I pitched an idea to the family business. Every time Damien let Callista speak over me, make decisions for me, erase me from the table like I was the inconvenience instead of the investor. And still, I'd tried, I'd paid, I'd shown up, and now I was the liability. "I gotta go," I said. He didn't stop me, just muttered something that might have been my name, or an apology, or an excuse. I didn't wait to find out. I ended the call. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't scream. Instead, I turned back to the window. The sun was climbing higher now, casting sharp, angular shadows across the penthouse floor. I watched them stretch. Callista had done this to me, but Damien had handed her the knife. And yet, under all the anger, something else stirred. I didn't want to cry. I wanted to understand. What had made her hate me enough to do this? The answer didn't come in words. It came as a memory, an old one, barely a flicker. A dinner, 5 years ago. She'd just gotten her first byline in some wedding magazine. I was managing back-to-back events for a Fortune 100 brand, but when she walked into the dining room in that cream silk blazer, Damien had stood up to kiss her cheek. "Look at you," he'd said. "Our star." And Callista turned to me and smirked. "Still doing those little birthday brunches, Elara?" She said it loud enough for everyone to hear. That night I cleared the table while they toasted her. I never forgot it. And now, 5 years later, she'd turned my investment into her inheritance. I walked to the tablet, opened the calendar again, Thursday. Vows at 3 p.m., reception at 5. All paid for by the sister who wouldn't even be there. I tapped the screen once, then again, then pressed the number at the top of the booking. It rang and rang. Then someone picked up. "Elara?" It was Talia's voice again, uncertain, cautious. I didn't wait. Didn't let her fill the silence this time. "I want everything canceled. Venue, catering, floral contracts, photographer, revoke the date." There was a beat, then 2. "Elara, are you sure?" "Yes. Even if, yes." Silence again, but this time it was her holding her breath. "I'll do what I can," she said. "But you should know. Callista found something, a letter. I don't know what it said, but she seemed rattled." "A letter?" My pulse flinched. "Where did she get it?" "I don't know, she said it was from your mother's things." My stomach turned. My mother had been dead 10 years, and yet somehow she was still being dragged into this. Talia's voice dropped, nervous now. "Does that mean something to you?" I closed my eyes. Not yet, but it would. "Cancel everything," I repeated. "I'll handle the fallout." And I hung up. Then stood there, heart pounding, chest tight, hands steady. Whatever that letter was, whatever Callista thought she'd uncovered, it was too late. The fuse had already been lit. The sky outside had turned a bruised gray by the time I sat down again. The city hadn't changed. Cars still groaned below, honking in impatient rhythm. But something inside me had calcified. The call with Damien, the silence that followed, and now the letter from my mother. Everything had funneled into one sharpened point. No more waiting, no more hoping they'd come around. I tapped the speaker icon on my phone and scrolled to the last number dialed. Talia answered on the second ring. Elara? Her voice was cautious, like someone bracing for aftershocks. I imagined her in her studio, hair frizzing from stress, surrounded by seating charts and ivory ribbons that no longer mattered. I didn't waste breath. Cancel the wedding, I said. There was a beat of dead air. Excuse me? The venue, the caterer, the rentals, all of it, shut it down. I heard her inhale sharply. Elara, you're not the bride. I'm the client, I said. I signed the contracts. The payments came from my account. She didn't answer right away. In the silence, I noticed my hand shaking slightly, just enough to rattle the charm bracelet at my wrist. I clasped it with my other hand to still the sound. Elara, she said finally, are you absolutely sure? A sliver of hesitation tried to creep in. What if this made me just as cruel as them? But then I remembered Callista's smirk, the way Damien refused to say he was sorry. $50,000, used like a tip at a spa day. My mother's letter, now in the hands of someone who'd never earned it. I straightened. I'm sure. Another pause. Then came her quiet response. All right, I'll start making the calls. I hung up. My reflection in the glass door to the balcony looked steady now. Not strong, not smug, just still. It should have felt like a win, but all I felt was hollow. I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stared at rows of perfectly arranged sparkling waters and imported yogurts I didn't even like. My stomach growled, but I wasn't hungry. I was something else, restless, wired, and somewhere under that, deeply tired. I grabbed a bottle of water and twisted the cap until it squeaked. Sat down at the marble island, elbows on the cool surface. I stared at the faint scratch near the edge, one I remembered from a night 3 years ago. Callista had visited, a rare truce between us, or so I thought. She brought wine. We talked like sisters do when they're trying to be women instead of rivals. Somewhere in the third glass, she told me I was brave for staying small. I'd smiled then. Later that night, she spilled her wine. The stain never came out of the suede stool. The scratch on the marble stayed too. That was the last time she was in my home. And now, she'd invaded everything else. My phone buzzed again. Unknown caller. I let it ring. Then curiosity won. Hello? Elara, a voice said, low and trembling. It's Jorah. I stood up too fast. The stool leg screeched against the floor. Jorah? Are you okay? I just saw Callista. That name again. Cold metal in the mouth. She's losing it, he said. Screaming about the cancellations. She thinks it's sabotage. She thinks you planted something. What do you mean? She found a letter, he said. Your mother's. Said it was hidden in one of the bridal boxes in the estate's attic. She said it had your name on it. I blinked, my breath catching. What did it say? He hesitated. I didn't see it. She burned it. What? She said it was dangerous, that if you got it, everything would change. A long silence fell between us. I could feel my pulse in my throat, in my ears. She burned it, I repeated. Yes. The room swayed slightly like the floor had shifted an inch to the left. I grabbed the edge of the counter. Did she say anything else? Jorah hesitated again. Only that it wasn't just a letter. There was a second envelope inside. Something sealed. I squeezed my eyes shut. Whatever was in that envelope, it wasn't just paper. It was something she didn't want me to have. Something worth destroying before I saw it. Thank you, I whispered. Elara, be careful. She's unraveling. And when Callista unravels, people bleed. The line went dead. I set the phone down, slower this time. Somewhere in the hollow space of my ribs, something stirred. Not rage, Not revenge, clarity. She hadn't just stolen my money, she'd stolen my mother's voice, her legacy, maybe more. And yet, there was one detail Callista didn't know, one she hadn't seen buried under her lace veils and entitlement. I didn't just fund her wedding, I owned the ground she planned to walk down on. But I wasn't ready to reveal that yet. Not until I watched everything else she built, on top of my name, my money, and my silence, begin to collapse. Brick by glittering brick. The next morning broke soft and golden, with that strange kind of hush that blankets a city just before the chaos resumes. Light spilled across my bedroom floor in long, drowsy streaks, catching on the polished brass corners of furniture and the faint swirl of dust dancing in the air. But peace wasn't what I woke up to. It was my phone, buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. Talia. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. Her voice came through in a rapid whisper, already tight with panic. Elara, what the hell is going on? I sat up slowly, the silk sheet slipping from my shoulder. I told you, I said. Cancel everything. I know, she said, but now I'm getting calls from the venue coordinator, the catering kitchen, even the photographer, asking if the bride still wants custom plating or if the full team should stand down. None of them understand how you're allowed to do this. I walked to the window, barefoot on cold marble, phone pressed against my cheek. Because I didn't rent anything, I said. I own it. Talia fell silent. I could hear her blinking, literally feel her thoughts crashing into each other through the line. Come again? The venue, I said, calm. And the caterer, and the studio that does the floral designs. They're mine, quietly, through shell companies mostly, but legally, entirely mine. Another beat of silence. Then, in a voice somewhere between awe and disbelief, Jesus. I didn't smile, because this wasn't about pride. It was about control. I set it up that way for a reason, I said. No one knows. That's how I wanted it, until now. I could almost hear her sit down, probably dropping into the velvet armchair in her office, surrounded by lavender mood boards and unopened save the dates. This changes everything, she said, voice soft now. I've never seen someone play the long game like this. I looked out over the skyline. The morning haze was lifting. The city was waking up. She shouldn't have made it personal. Talia didn't argue. She just asked, so what happens next? My fingers grazed the windowsill. The metal was cool beneath my skin. Let them scramble, I said. Let her call the team. Let her beg. Is that what you want? No, I said. I want her to watch it fall apart before she can lie her way out of it. And then I ended the call. I spent the rest of the morning in silence. No music, no phone calls. Just the soft hum of the espresso machine and the occasional buzz of emails rolling in, vendors confirming cancellations, clients praising the Voss Group for our firm leadership and vendor integrity. None of them knew the irony. None of them knew that I was the one pulling every thread. Until an alert popped up on my phone. Incoming call. Callista. I stared at the screen. She never called. Not unless there was something in it for her. I let it ring. Once, twice. Then I answered. Wow, she said. No hello, just venom. I always knew you were a control freak, but this is psychotic. Good morning to you too. You canceled my wedding, Elara. I canceled my event, I said. You are ruining everything. No, I said slowly. I'm reclaiming it. She went quiet, and for a moment I thought she might actually, just once, apologize, but instead she laughed, a short, cold, cutting sound. You always wanted to be the center of attention, she said. Well, congratulations. Now everyone's talking about you, the girl who built a business just to destroy her own sister's wedding. What kind of monster does that? I tightened my grip on the phone, my other hand pressed flat against the wall, steadying myself. You stole from me, I said. You lied to me. You burned our mother's letter. I protected us, she snapped. You think that letter would have helped you? It would have ruined you. Her voice cracked then, just barely. I know things you don't, she whispered, and suddenly I felt it, the tremor underneath her fury, fear. Not of losing a venue, of losing control. Whatever you think you've buried, I said, it won't stay buried. She didn't answer. I could hear her breathing now, fast and uneven. Then she hung up. I lowered the phone slowly. The room felt darker somehow, not in light, but in air, the way it closed in, wrapped around me, like the shadows had lengthened behind the wallpaper. I walked to the drawer near the bookshelf, pulled it open, took out the folder I hadn't touched in years. Inside, deeds, contracts, invoices, copies of my shell company filings, every piece of paper Callista thought she'd hidden from, and tucked in the back, a photo, me and Mom, at my first solo event launch. I'd been 25, sweating through my navy blazer. She'd surprised me with white tulips and whispered, "This is only the beginning." She died 3 months later, and now, a letter in her handwriting, burned, gone. Or maybe not. Because Callista never destroyed anything she thought she could use. Not really. I stared at the photo, then slid the folder back. This wasn't about a wedding anymore. It never was. It was about truth, power, and the parts of my mother she'd left behind, in me. It didn't take long. By noon, she called again. I didn't answer. I let it ring while I watched the sky shift from soft gold to hard white, the kind of Los Angeles sunlight that made glass sweat and sidewalks shimmer like cracked porcelain. I stood by the kitchen sink, thumb grazing the rim of a coffee cup I hadn't touched. 3 rings, 4. Then silence. Then a voicemail. Her voice was different this time, syrupy, rehearsed. "Elara, I think we've both said things we didn't mean. I'm sorry if anything got misunderstood. I just want us to talk, please." I didn't delete it, didn't return it either. Instead, I waited, because Callista never did anything without a motive. If she was calling now, it wasn't out of guilt. It was strategy. I didn't have to wait long to confirm it. An hour later, she showed up at my office, not announced, not invited. The receptionist buzzed me once. I told her to send Callista in. Let her think she still had power. She entered like she always did, shoulders squared, chin lifted, lips slightly parted like she was preparing for applause that never came. "Elara," she breathed, like my name was a wound on her tongue. I stayed seated behind the glass desk. I didn't offer her a chair. She looked around at the space, sleek, minimal, lined with backlit photos of Voss Group events that had graced magazines she pretended not to read. "I just came to talk," she said. "Then talk." She hesitated. For the first time in a while, I saw her search for words. "I know things got messy, but I never meant to hurt you. The uninviting, it wasn't personal. It was logistical." Logistical. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a microaction, nervous. She used to do that before tests in high school. "You've been under a lot of stress, and we thought maybe the pressure would make things worse for you, emotionally, for the family, that's all." "You took $50,000 from me." She blinked. I didn't raise my voice, didn't need to. "You spent it on your dress fittings and florals and champagne packages, then shut me out." "It wasn't like that," she said quickly. "Dad said it would be handled." "Handled how?" "Reimbursed, quietly. We just didn't want to cause drama." I laughed. One short, sharp note that cut the air between us. "You didn't want drama, so you excluded me from my own sister's wedding, then gaslit me when I pushed back." She flinched. There, real emotion. Then it vanished. "I just wanted the day to go smoothly." "For whom?" She didn't answer. I stood slowly, walked around the desk, not toward her, past her, toward the window. From the 38th floor, the city looked almost manageable. Almost. "You burned a letter from our mother." She froze. "I don't know what you're talking about. Jorah said you found it, said it was addressed to me, and you destroyed it." Her voice faltered. "It was old, confusing. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything," I repeated, still watching the skyline. "But you burned it." She moved closer. Her voice softened. "Elara, you don't know what was in it. It wasn't good. Mom wasn't well toward the end. She wrote strange things. I was trying to protect you." I turned. She was closer than I expected, just a few feet away. I could see the faint smudge of mascara at the edge of her lashes. Her perfume, jasmine and something sharper, lingered in the air. "You weren't protecting me," I said. "You were protecting yourself." Her face hardened, and just like that, the mask dropped. Her shoulders pulled back. Her chin lifted again. "You've always played the victim," she said. "Even when you were succeeding, especially then. You wanted everyone to think you were self-made. that you pulled yourself out of some tragic little pit we left you in, but you always had help. I built this on my own. You built it with Dad's contacts, with Mom's sympathy, with my silence. Something in me went still. My silence, she repeated. Every time you failed, I let you fall quietly. I didn't run to the family. I didn't mock you. I let you recover in peace. That's more grace than you've ever shown me. I stared at her, and for 1 second, a full, terrible second, I saw it. She really believed that her restraint was mercy, that her manipulation was love. That betrayal, in a tasteful package, was family. She stepped closer, almost touched my arm. I want peace, Elara, I do, but if you keep pushing this, I can't stop what happens next. There it was, the threat. Soft, wrapped in concern, but real. I stepped back. I'm not pushing anything, I said. I'm just not playing dead anymore. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I walked to the door and opened it. She lingered. You think this is justice, she said, but it's just vengeance in heels. Better than betrayal in white. She left without another word. I closed the door slowly. The latch clicked into place like punctuation. I stood there for a long moment, breathing, just breathing, then turned to my desk and picked up the photo of Mom again. The truth wasn't gone, it was just hiding, and I was done waiting. It was raining when Jorah showed up. Not the usual LA drizzle that evaporated on impact, but a full, moody downpour, the kind that made the city smell like wet pavement and burnt brakes. Water slid down the windows of my penthouse like slow tears, warping the skyline into something ghostly. I hadn't expected him, but when I opened the door, he was there, drenched, breathless, and holding something wrapped in a plastic shopping bag. Elara, he said, his voice low, you need to see this. I stepped aside without a word. His shoes squeaked on the floor as he entered, leaving little puddles in his wake. He peeled off his jacket and laid the damp bundle on the kitchen counter like it was something sacred. I found it, he said, hidden under a loose board in the attic at the estate, behind a stack of wedding boxes. He unwrapped the plastic carefully, revealing a yellowed envelope sealed with faded red wax. And my mother's handwriting, elegant, distinct, unmistakable, to Elara. For when it matters most, my fingers trembled before they even touched it. I didn't speak. I just stared at the way her loops curled around my name, like she'd written it with tears drying on the page. Callista didn't find this one, Jorah said. She only found the decoy, maybe a distraction. This was deeper, hidden. How did you even know to look? He hesitated. I overheard her talking to Damien. She said something about the real one still being out there. I figured, if anyone would know where to hide something in that house, it would be your mom. I nodded once, then slid my finger under the wax and broke the seal. Inside, 2 sheets of brittle paper, and something heavier. I unfolded them carefully, heart pounding in my throat. The first line hit me like a punch to the ribs. Elara, if you're reading this, I didn't get to say goodbye. The air around me thickened. Even the light seemed to dim. I read silently, the words sticking to me like rain on skin. You always saw things others didn't. Patterns, people, power, that's your gift and your burden. I wish I'd told you more, but there were reasons I stayed silent and dangers I never figured out how to name. My eyes burned. Jorah didn't speak. He just stood nearby, letting the silence breathe between us. There are things buried in the towers, not beneath it, but inside it. Look closer. The truth is in the towers. Not all legacies wear their names openly. I lowered the letter slowly, my breath shaking. The truth is in the towers. What does that mean? Jorah asked softly. I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure, but I remembered something. An old design sketch my mother once showed me, before Voss Towers was even built. A hidden safe room, decorative panels that weren't just aesthetic. She used to say, every woman needs a place no one else can claim. I thought she meant metaphorically. Now I wasn't so sure. I turned to the envelope again. There was a second item, a small brass key taped to the back, cold, ornate, worn with time. My chest tightened. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. I think she left something inside the building, I whispered. Jorah leaned in. Like what? I don't know, but Callista clearly feared it. She burned the first letter for a reason. She thought it would destroy me. Maybe she was trying to stop me from finding this. And if you do? I looked at him. Then I'll finally know why she's always been afraid of me. He nodded, jaw tight, but there was something else in his eyes. Worry, not just for me, but for what we might find. I looked back at the letter. My mother had been so careful, so deliberate, and yet so afraid. You could read it between the lines. Whatever she buried, it had weight and teeth. The rain outside softened, shifting from roar to whisper, a lull in the storm. I walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window and pressed the key to the glass. It reflected back at me, gold and ghostly. I could see the towers in the distance, sharp, sleek, untouchable. But I knew better now. Not all power is visible. Not all stories begin with a clean slate. Some begin with ashes, with things left unsaid, and with the people willing to dig anyway. I turned to Jorah. Call building security. I want access to the architectural archives by morning. You think it's hidden behind a wall? I think it's hidden in plain sight. He nodded once, already pulling out his phone. As he stepped away, I turned back to the envelope, fingertips grazing the wax seal now broken in two. My mother trusted me to find the truth, and for the first time in years, I felt that truth stir, like something sleeping just beneath the surface, waiting for me to be ready. Well, I was ready now, because some legacies aren't passed down, they're hunted. It started with a single email, subject line, immediate termination of bookings, Directive 507 protocol. Within minutes, my assistant team across the Voss Group's West Coast branches received it. By the hour's end, every hotel reservation tied to Callista, Damien, or any of their friends and vendors had been pulled. I didn't send it from my main account. I used the one only 5 people in the world knew existed, under the shell entity that owned everything with my fingerprints on it, the one Callista never knew to fear, until now. I stood by the panoramic window of my downtown office as the final confirmations trickled in. My reflection looked sharper than I remembered, chin slightly raised, eyes colder. I wasn't hiding anymore. Jorah stood beside me, tablet in hand. They're all cleared. Voss Towers, Palmcrest, Valencia Bay, even the Napa estate. I nodded once. Good. Hold the availability open, but don't relist. I want her to feel the absence before she finds the void. He hesitated. You sure you want to play it this hard? I'm not playing, I said. Outside, the LA skyline stretched wide and glittering, unaware of the empire being silently redrawn from this room. I thought about the years I'd spent building, quietly, strategically, putting my name on nothing but my leverage on everything. I used to think invisibility was protection, that if they didn't see me coming, they couldn't aim their knives. I was wrong. They didn't need to see me to wound me. They just needed me to stay silent. Not anymore. My phone buzzed. Blocked caller. I didn't need caller ID. I answered. You've made your point, Callista said, her voice low, clipped. Canceling the wedding wasn't enough? Now you're erasing everything? I'm reclaiming what I built, I said. You canceled Dad's room, she hissed. The spa retreat I booked for the bridal party. The suite I was going to use after the rehearsal dinner. None of that was yours to begin with. There was a pause. Then she snapped. How long have you owned everything? Long enough. You hid it from us. No, I said calmly. You refused to see it. She laughed, a sharp, broken sound. All this time we thought you were drowning in event invoices and party favors. Turns out you've been quietly building a kingdom under our feet. And you've been dancing on the roof, I said, thinking it was yours. Another pause. This one tighter, thicker. Then, in a voice that chilled even me, you don't get to humiliate me like this. This isn't humiliation, I said. It's revelation. She didn't respond, just hung up. I let the silence settle, then turned back to Jorah. Initiate blackout protocol. They're locked out. Everything, indefinitely. He nodded, then paused. You should know. She called a press contact. Told them a story's coming. My stomach didn't flinch. I'd expected this. She'll spin it, he added. Make you the villain, the unstable sister, the scorned investor. She can try, I said. But when she does, I want my story ready. He blinked. You want to go public? No, I said. I want the truth on standby. Quiet, precise, ready when I say so. Understood. He left me alone then, And for a while, I just stood there, letting the weight of what I'd done settle around me like fresh paint. This wasn't vengeance, it was clarity. But even still, it hurt. I walked to the side cabinet and pulled out the old portfolio, the one with the original sketches of Voss Towers. My mother's notes were scribbled in the margins, arrows pointing to hidden rooms, reinforced walls, hollow panels. She dreamed of a space that would hold not just power, but secrets, and I'd made it real. I traced one finger along a sketched staircase that didn't appear on the official blueprint. It led to a utility chamber disguised as HVAC housing on the 42nd floor. Was that where the truth waited? I didn't know, yet. But I could feel something coming. Not just the collapse of Callista's facade, but something deeper, older, buried in concrete and memory. And then, a buzz. This time, not from my phone. The intercom crackled. Jorah's voice. "Elara, your father's here. Says it's urgent." I froze, then slowly exhaled. Let the next storm begin. He looked older, not just tired, aged, like the guilt had hollowed him out from the inside. Damien Voss stood in my office lobby with his coat still damp from the rain, hands shoved too deep in his pockets, eyes shifting like he wasn't sure if he belonged there. "Thank you for seeing me," he said. I didn't reply, just led him through the glass doors and into the lounge across from my desk. The city roared outside, muted by thick glass and distance. The world felt distant. He did too. He sat slowly, as if his body remembered being a man who used to command rooms, but no longer had the energy to pretend. "I came because I couldn't let it end like this," he said. I poured a cup of coffee and handed it to him, careful not to let our fingers touch. He stared into the mug like he expected answers to swirl up with the steam. "I didn't know," he finally said. "Not at first. About the money, about the letter, about what Callista really did." I crossed my arms. "But you knew later," and still said nothing. "I didn't know how to fix it." His voice cracked around the edges, like a man unaccustomed to regret. I didn't move, didn't soften. If anything, I felt the opposite, hardened, braced. "Try," I said. He looked at me then, really looked. For the first time in years, I saw the flicker of the father I once trusted. The man who sat next to me on park benches with melted popsicles, who taught me how to parallel park by yelling half-proud through a cracked window. But that man had also let me be erased. "I didn't want to choose," he said, "between you and her." "You didn't have to choose," I said. "You just had to stand up." He rubbed a hand over his face. "She told me you were unstable, that you were cutting corners, that if the media found out about the lawsuits, your reputation would tank and take the family with it." "There were no lawsuits," I said. "I know that now." His voice dropped to a whisper. But at the time, she was so certain. And I thought, what if she was right? A sick feeling crept into my throat. She hadn't just painted me out of the family. She'd rewritten me as a liability, and he'd let her. "She's always had a way of sounding convincing," I said, more to myself than to him. "She's scared now," he said, angry, but underneath that, terrified. "She should be." The words came out colder than I expected, but they didn't feel wrong. He sat forward, elbows on knees. "Would you ever consider peace?" That word, peace, it felt like a lie in my mouth. "You mean, forgive her?" "I mean, find a way to stop this before there's nothing left of either of you." I stood, walked toward the window. The reflection caught both of us, him slouched, me upright, the ghost of every unsaid thing hanging between us. Before I could answer, the door burst open. Callista, hair swept back like she was arriving for a magazine cover shoot, voice already raised like she'd been rehearsing every syllable in the elevator. "You're unbelievable," she snapped. "You tell Dad to come here and grovel for you while you cancel my wedding and blacklist me from half the venues in California?" I turned slowly. "I didn't tell him to come." She pointed at Damien. "And you weren't supposed to make this worse." "I'm trying to fix it," he said. "There's nothing to fix," she barked. "She's the one who lit the match." Her heels clicked across the floor like gunshots. "You really think this is about justice? That you're some kind of avenging angel for Mom's ghost?" "I think," I said, "you're afraid I'll expose everything." She scoffed. "There's nothing to expose." "Then why did you burn the letter?" Her jaw tightened. Because it was nonsense. Ramblings. Not worth your obsession. She trusted me with it, I said. She trusted both of us, she snapped. You're just the one who never moved on. I felt my fingers curl slightly at my sides. Damien stood now, voice strained. Enough, both of you. But she kept going. You think the world's going to fall at your feet because you finally showed your hand? You're still just a glorified event planner with a God complex. You're right, I said. She blinked. I do have a God complex. But the difference is, I built the temple you're begging to get married in. The silence cracked like thunder. She stared at me, breath shallow, red rising in her cheeks. I'll find another venue, she hissed, another caterer, another way. I hope you do, I said, but you'll never erase what you did. Damien stepped between us, hands raised. I didn't come here for this, he said. I came to say I'm sorry. He turned to me, and I mean it. Whatever happens next, I hope you know I see you now. Then he left. Callista didn't. She just stood there, watching me. I'm not done, she said. Neither am I. And that was the truth. Because somewhere in the towers a secret still waited, and whatever Callista was so desperate to bury, I was finally ready to unearth. The air felt different the next morning, not calmer, heavier, like the city itself was holding its breath. I stared out over the skyline from the rooftop lounge at Voss Towers, the morning sun slicing through cloud cover like a slow blade. The glass railings glimmered. A soft breeze toyed with the hem of my silk blouse. The rooftop had hosted CEOs, charity galas, even a Vogue cover shoot. But today, it would host something far less glamorous. An offer. Jorah stepped beside me, clipboard in hand. You're really doing this? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I didn't know. Not until the moment I saw her step off the elevator. Callista, hair pulled into a low chignon, face bare except for a thin line of eyeliner. She looked restrained, like she didn't trust herself to emote too much. Thanks for coming, I said. She eyed the rooftop like it might bite. You said you wanted to talk. I motioned to the table. She didn't sit, just stood across from me, arms crossed. I slid a folder toward her. She didn't touch it. What is this? She asked. A new wedding plan. She scoffed. I don't need your charity. It's not charity, I said. It's business. She looked at me now, head tilted, suspicious. I opened the folder myself. Venue, Voss Towers rooftop. Catering, reclaimed from the original vendors under my oversight. Guest limit, 150. Fee, 200,000, prepaid, and I'll be maid of honor. The silence that followed wasn't shocked. It was stunned. Are you serious? Deadly. After everything, you're giving me the wedding back? Not the same wedding, I said. A controlled one, on my terms. She blinked, trying to read the catch. There's no trap, I added. Just a mirror. Meaning? Meaning, this time you'll have to look at yourself while you stand on my ground. Her eyes narrowed, but she opened the folder, scanned it. Page after page of perfectly outlined contracts, dates, contingencies. This isn't forgiveness, she said. No, I replied. It's exposure. She looked up sharply. I want everyone to see you now, Callista, not the curated bride or the grieving daughter, the woman who spent her life orchestrating illusions. And maybe, just maybe, watch you try to survive without the masks. Her jaw twitched, but she nodded. I'll sign. My fingers curled slightly around the coffee mug in front of me. I hadn't expected that. I expected screaming. Sabotage. One final insult before she stormed off again. But she sat down, took the pen from my hand, and signed. Just like that. A beat of silence. Then, her voice, quiet. You're not doing this for redemption. No, I said. I'm doing it for closure. She leaned back. Well, congratulations, she said. You get your big moment, your stage, your speech. It's not about the speech, she smirked, isn't it? And just like that, I felt it. The chill behind her words. There was something she wasn't saying, something beneath the surface of her sudden cooperation. I rose. You'll get your wedding, I said, but don't mistake this for surrender. I wouldn't dream of it, she said. We parted without another word, but as I watched her walk away, heels echoing down the rooftop steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just given her a stage for something far worse than vows. That night, I sat alone in the penthouse. The copy of the signed contract rested on my desk, untouched. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt watched, hunted. She wanted this wedding, but not for the reasons she claimed, and I was going to find out why. Because if Callista had a plan, then I'd better have one too. It happened in the hallway, years ago, but I could still smell the citrus polish on the marble floors, still hear the murmured laughter through the walls. I was 25, carrying a vision board and a folder full of investor pitches. My first real shot at launching an event brand under my name, not the family's. It was supposed to be a meeting. Instead, I walked in to find the chairs already filled. And Callista, smiling at the head of the table, presenting a nearly identical proposal. Mine, repackaged in her font, her branding. Our team decided to move in a different direction, one of the investors had said afterward. I remember the burn behind my eyes, the way my throat swelled, and the way Callista leaned in as I passed her in the hallway whispering, "Wrong room, little sister." That moment lived somewhere deep in my spine. I never told anyone, until now. "Why didn't you say something back then?" Damien asked. Because we were standing in the same hallway now, 7 years later, Voss Towers, 42nd floor, my floor. I didn't answer right away. We'd just finished a meeting. He'd asked to speak alone, and now he was walking beside me, slower than usual, like each word he needed to say was a stone in his chest. "I thought it was a fluke," I said finally. "A coincidence. I didn't want to believe my own sister would do that." He rubbed a hand over his jaw. "I knew something was wrong when she changed her major that semester," he murmured, out of nowhere, suddenly wanted to try her hand at events. I stopped walking. He didn't. "I just didn't want to see it," he said, "or admit how easily she pulled me in." "You cut my funding," I said. "You told me I was making frivolous career choices, a distraction, not a path." He turned slowly. His eyes glistened, just enough. "She showed me documents, emails she claimed you sent, messages from vendors complaining, said you weren't ready, that I'd be investing in failure." "You believed her over me." He nodded, ashamed. "I did." The hallway buzzed faintly with elevator chimes and muffled footsteps, but inside me there was only stillness. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. "I let her poison the well," he said quietly, "and now I see you standing here, everything you've built, and I realize she wasn't afraid of you failing. She was afraid you'd succeed without her." Before I could respond, a voice rang out behind us. "Well, this is cozy. Callista." She stepped off the elevator in a cream pantsuit and no warning, arms crossed, face unreadable. "Nothing like a little father-daughter confession to get the day started," she added. "Callista," Damien began. "No," she cut in. "Let me guess. This is the part where you both bond over how awful I am. The evil sister, the manipulator, the woman who burned letters and dreams in the same breath." Her voice was calm, but her eyes, those eyes, burned. "You stole from me," I said. "I borrowed," she replied. "You just took too long to realize it. You sabotaged my career. I made mine stronger. By erasing mine." She laughed. "Please, you act like you were some helpless girl in the shadows. Look at you now. Penthouse, empire, all the cards in your hand. Isn't that what you wanted?" "No," I said. "I wanted a sister." For the first time, her face flickered. Just a moment, then cold again. "Well, sorry," she said. "Wrong story." She turned to Damien. "And you, don't even start. You've been switching sides since Mom died." "Because I've seen the truth," he said. "No," she snapped. "You've seen convenience. You'd rather align with whoever holds the bigger bank account." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" she whispered. Silence. She took a step closer to me. "You think this little redemption arc of yours ends with a speech at my wedding and some dramatic toast to healing? Think again. You want to play saint and executioner? Go ahead. But I'll still be the one in white." Then she walked. No storming, no slamming, just that confident click of heels retreating down the corridor. Damien let out a slow breath. I stayed frozen, because under the rage, under the accusations, there was something else in her voice I couldn't ignore. Fear. but not of me, of what I might find. Back in my office, I sat alone and pulled out the blueprints again, the ones from my mother's old sketches, one panel, unmarked, tucked behind the bridal suite wall. I ran my fingers across it and whispered, "Let's see what you were protecting." The sky was the kind of soft gray that photographers pray for, diffused, cinematic, forgiving. From the rooftop garden of Voss Towers, the view stretched past the skyline, out toward the ocean, blurred at the edges by a gentle mist. Every chair was filled, every flower perfectly placed, and in the center of it all, Callista. She stood beneath the archway, flawless, controlled, a human sculpture in white silk. You wouldn't know what she'd done by looking at her, but I knew, and as I walked down the aisle behind her, holding the hem of her train with both hands, I couldn't help thinking, I used to walk behind her everywhere, always 2 steps behind, always the one cleaning up after her, but not today. Today I walked with her eyes on me, and she knew it. The ceremony was tight, scripted, beautiful in that cold, editorial kind of way that looks better in photographs than it feels in real life. She said her vows without trembling. He said his with a practiced steadiness that told me this wasn't about romance, it was about optics. I watched the whole thing from my designated spot. Hands folded, smile poised, jaw tight. Then, just after the kiss, the clinking of glasses and the choreographed applause, the coordinator leaned in and whispered, "We're ready for the speech." I rose, picked up my glass, and stepped to the front of the reception. The rooftop lights had warmed. Soft golden orbs strung like stars above the white tablecloths and glass centerpieces. The crowd quieted. I didn't use a mic, just raised my voice gently. "My name," I said, "is Elara Voss, maid of honor, little sister." A few polite chuckles. I looked at Callista. She met my gaze, unmoving, unsmiling. I thought for a long time about what kind of speech this should be, whether it should be sentimental or funny or safe. I let the silence stretch a little. But then I remembered something our mother used to say, that the most important moments in life aren't the ones that look best in pictures, they're the ones that feel like home. I let my eyes drift across the tables. Faces leaned in, waiting. And for a long time I didn't feel like I had a home in this family. I felt like a guest in my own story. Callista didn't blink. But healing, I've learned, doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes it comes with truth. And the truth is, family isn't perfect. Sometimes it's broken. Sometimes it lies. Sometimes it burns the very things meant to protect us. A pause. No one moved. But sometimes, even then, it gives you a second chance to choose who you want to be. Today, Callista, I looked at her again, her posture perfect, her lips parted just slightly. You chose to show up. And whether it was for love, for legacy, or for image, you stood here, and so did I. She blinked once, slow. I don't know if that's peace, but it's something. I raised my glass. To beginnings, even if they're built on ruins. The crowd applauded. I sat down. Jorah passed me a napkin. I didn't know if it was for sweat or tears. Callista stood a moment later, not to respond, not to speak, but to clap, softly, deliberately, eyes locked on mine. 1 beat, 2. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Later, in the quiet hum of the kitchen hallway, she found me, leaning against the counter, loosening my shoes. She stepped beside me like we were old friends. "That was quite the performance," she said. "Wasn't it?" I replied. She nodded. "You always did have a way with words." I turned to her. "You still hiding something?" She didn't flinch, just smoothed her hand along her hip, like she was brushing off dust. "I guess we'll both find out soon enough." She walked away, her train trailing slightly behind her like a shadow. And that's when I knew. The wedding wasn't her finale. It was her smokescreen. Back in my suite, I opened the blueprint again, found the panel, the one behind the bridal suite wall. My mother's mark etched in tiny pencil strokes. I ran my hand along the wallpaper, found the faintest seam, and started to pull. The wallpaper peeled back easier than I expected. Behind it, a recessed wooden panel, aged and soft around the edges. I slid my fingers into the groove, felt the latch click, then a quiet pop as the wall released an inch toward me. Inside the cavity, tucked in a narrow compartment between insulation and steel framing, was a small, fireproof lockbox. I carried it to my desk with both hands like it weighed more than it should have, like my mother's voice was still inside it, waiting. The brass key from her letter fit the lock perfectly. One turn, inside, two things, a second envelope, and a USB drive. I opened the letter first. Elara, if you're reading this, you found what I couldn't say out loud. Your father made decisions after I passed. And Callista? She helped him cover things up. They rewrote your inheritance, signed over parts of the estate. You were never supposed to find out, but I built Voss Towers for you, quietly, through a trust, a gift they couldn't touch. All the documents are on the drive. So is my recorded statement. Use it when you're ready. Love, Mom. I stared at the pages. My throat pulsed. They'd buried it all. The estate, the money, even the truth of who I was to her. All while Callista threw wedding bouquets from a platform built on my mother's silence. I plugged in the USB. Her voice filled the room, soft, tired, recorded weeks before her death. She named names, signed dates, showed the paper trail of every asset funneled away from me and into Callista's future. When it ended, I didn't cry. I exhaled, long, hollow, but steady. That night, I sent 3 emails, one to my lawyer, one to the family accountant, and one to Callista. Her reply came by morning. Let's talk. We met in the conference room on the 40th floor, neutral ground. The city stretched beyond us, humming as if nothing had changed. She walked in first, didn't sit. I pushed the folder toward her. Everything, I said. The drive, the letter, Mom's trust, the asset transfers, the voice recording. She didn't look surprised, just resigned. You knew, I said. I suspected, she replied. No, you knew. She didn't deny it. I waited. She leaned against the chair but didn't sink into it. You think this makes you the hero? No, I said. But it finally makes me free. She swallowed. Her fingers brushed the back of the chair, a micro tremor she couldn't hide. I didn't mean to take everything from you, she said. But you did. Silence. Then she asked, quietly, what happens now? I opened the second folder. An agreement. She'd forfeit the wedding profits, release the estate claim, walk away from the trust my mother left behind. In exchange, I'd keep the recordings private, for now. Her fingers hovered over the paper. You always win, she whispered. No, I said. I just stopped letting you take. She signed, with a sharp flick of the pen, then left without another word. Days passed, then weeks. The wedding photos were released to the press, framed perfectly, curated by a PR team that spun it as a private family celebration. The truth stayed behind sealed doors, but I knew, and so did she. I moved back into the estate a month later, walked through the halls with fresh paint and fresh eyes. One morning I found a note on the doorstep. No envelope, no signature, just a single sentence. Maybe one day you'll forgive me, but I won't ask for it. I folded it once and left it in the drawer of my mother's old desk. I didn't need closure from her, because I'd made my own. Healing doesn't always look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like distance, like building something that no one can take this time, like holding power in your own name and no one else's. Mom was right. The truth had been in the towers all along. I just had to be ready to walk through every locked door to find it. If this story moved you like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful voiceover stories every week. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to take your power back, quietly? And don't miss our next tale, another gripping story of family secrets and second chances.